Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Welfare Clinic. Today we're going to talk about business and employment. And my guest, who has significant knowledge in these two particular fields, is Shohag Mansur, who is the managing director of Osbourne Accountant and Training. Shohag bhai, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rahman. Thank you for the opportunity.
We're going to talk about business and employment. If somebody wants to set up business as a sole trader, self-employed, or partnership, what do they have to do, and how can they go about setting up a business?
Setting up a business is absolutely it's a huge step. Uh, so when someone is considering setting up a business, the very first thing they need to have is the passion for the business that they are going to set up. Then the next thing would be doing some research before going into the process of setting up the business. Because once you are committed, it is a lot of responsibility. It's a big commitment. Okay, so for that, a lot of research is needed. That if the business is the one they are going to set up, is it right for them? Is it going to be economically viable for them? And also, do they have enough technical knowledge about running that business? So it is absolutely vital before someone
I guess
starts.
research is very important because often we see people are very eager to open business, but then it's not lasting very long, and they're closing down business within
Absolutely, yeah.
few months or few years of setting up a
Absolutely,
business.
there are a lot of examples where people just set up without following anything at all, without researching the market. They just set up the business, and after a few days, after a few months, after some time, they just find everything so difficult to manage, and the end result is shutting down the
And I
business.
guess anything we do, you need to have a passion. If you don't have a passion in
Absolutely
you,
vital.
whether you
Yes,
go to a job in the morning, whether you run a business, or whether you're a taxi driver, or anything you're doing, if you don't have the passion for the job or the businesses that you're going to do, then I guess you're not going to be very successful.
absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. So that is absolutely important. That they need to do some market research and find out what are the challenges they have to face or they're going to possibly face. And after that, if they need any further information, further advice, there are a few different options they can use. Like there are some websites that are specifically set up to for people who are thinking or considering to set up a business. One of them is very useful is gov.uk. That's very useful website. They have it has all different type of information for different type of business. People can start a business, set up a business in different form, like as a sole trader when there is only one person is the owner. They can also set up with someone else as a
Partnership.
partnership. They can also think about consider setting up a business as a company. That is more formal form of setting up a business. So there are a few different options. So one has to consider all the pros and cons before making the decision to set up the business. And once they go through this information and advices, then it can help them to make a better decision. So apart from the website, they can also seek some professional help. That can also be another good
And is
option.
there anywhere they can go to set up the businesses? Obviously, discussed about research, passion, commitment. All of those things has to come from the individual who wants to set up the business. However, can they go anywhere else? And once they have all of those, to do the business plan, because obviously if you don't have a business plan, you can't open a bank account, you can't get a
Absolutely,
loan,
banks
uh,
require that. Yeah.
all of those kind of stuff. So is there anywhere they can go to register with Company House, and who can they go and talk to and get those sort of support or help?
The very obvious and easy answer is obviously they can go to like professionals, like professional accountants. They can get further advice on setting up the business and setting up the accounts and setting up, preparing the business plan. So one can prepare the business plan himself or uh,
Herself?
yeah,
It might be a
herself.
woman as
Absolutely,
well.
we shouldn't underestimate the power of women. Um, so they can do that by themselves, and they can also get professional help. On top of that, there are some websites like the government websites I mentioned, gov.uk. That's quite useful. It gives a lot of advices on how to prepare the business plan and what are the steps in setting up the companies or businesses, sole traders, partnerships, and um, the legal issues they need to consider, and regulatory issues, and ongoing legal and regulatory issues as well after the company is set up. So there are loads of useful information in there they can
And
find useful.
when does a business have to register for VAT as a small business?
For small businesses, initially they don't have to worry too much about VAT, because with VAT there is a threshold. At the moment it is 84,000. So only the business, if it is going to make 84,000, only then they have to consider register for VAT. But if in the first year or in the initial period, it's very unlikely for most of the startup to reach that
Unless they
threshold.
reach to 84,000.
Yes. So if they don't reach it on the first year, they don't have to worry about it. Only once they reach it, then they have to register. And once they register, then they have to charge VAT on their sales, and they can claim VAT back on expenses as well.
In terms of employment and training, was as you know, the employment market is very demanding, very competitive. In terms of for one job, you could easily have 30 people competing for it. What can individual do to make themselves more uh, employable? Uh, what sort of training can they get in terms of so that they can overcome some of the barriers and difficulties they're facing to get into employment?
Absolutely, it is very competitive at the moment. It is very challenging as well in the employment market. So one who are looking to get into the job market, the very first thing they have to consider, that do they have the right skills for that sector they're going to start job into. So once they find out more about the requirements of the jobs they're going to do, and research more about what are the skill gaps the as a person he or she has, they can get trained, they can get further skills through different sources. So further education colleges, they are doing fantastic job. They provide a lot of different types of training on different sector. There are a lot of private training providers who are also doing very good job in training people and making people more employable and more ready to get into the job market. So from my experience, I have seen that people, they have the talent, they have the potential. So all they need is like further brush up their
But
skills.
sometimes we find, for example, somebody have been working for many years,
Hmm.
never had to apply for a job. All of a sudden, they find themselves out of employment for whatever reason, um, and they haven't applied for a job for last 20, 30 years because they was working in one job, and
Yes,
then they find
absolutely.
it even though they have so much experience, but they find it so difficult because they haven't written a CV for last 30 years or 20 years. They haven't done any interviews or attended any interviews for last 20,
Absolutely,
30 years,
yeah.
and they can be even more nervous and find it even more difficult than somebody who's been unemployed on regular basis or looking for a
Looking
work
for
on
job, yeah.
job all the time.
So yes, that's a very good question, and it is mostly applicable, I believe, for the public sector workers. They, I've seen a lot of people. They have been working in the public sector, and suddenly they're redundant. They're made
Yeah.
redundant, and then they find it really challenging because they haven't done this thing for so long, applying for jobs, preparing CVs, making themselves prepared for interviews. So for that, again, further training is the very important solution. They can train further. They can train on courses that gives them more information, more advices on how to prepare for interviews for jobs, how to prepare CVs. So those training, there's a lot of training provided, private and also the FE, the public colleges that they do. They are really useful and helpful for people. So it is absolutely vital that they make themselves ready before they look for job.
One question I want to ask, we have many young people coming from abroad, especially from Bangladesh or South Asian subcontinents. And when they come here, they want to study, but they also want to work because they want to earn a living. However, then they have to compete with somebody born and brought up in this country.
That's correct.
What advice would you give to those individuals who is coming from abroad, wanting to study and work in this country?
For them, it's not easy. A lot of people come here before knowing anything about the situation here, about the job market. They have very little knowledge about how the job market is here. So they have, like, a lot of them, they have big dreams about London. When they come in, they will get jobs easily, they will make a lot of money, but it doesn't happen because the employment market is very competitive. And one thing a lot of them they lack is the language skills, effective communication skills. So for them, my advice would be, before coming here, research further that if it is the right place for you to work, and because it
As
is
soon as
very
people hear
expensive.
London, they think, wow, I'm going London, I'm
Yeah,
going to become a very rich overnight. But
millionaire. Yeah,
it doesn't work like that, because
exactly.
you find yourself into a lot of difficulties. Obviously, when you're renting a property, the rent is very high,
Absolutely, it
and
is
if you're
very
not
expensive.
earning the money that you need to survive, then you can find yourself in an extremely difficult situation.
Absolutely, everything is expensive in London. The cost of living is very expensive. So most of them, they don't really have ideas about the living cost, expenses, and the challenges they're going to face. So when they come in, it's just like they're in the middle of nowhere. So
But is it true that also that a lot of the employers then, um, abuse those individuals in a way of making them work longer hours, paying them a lot less than what they should be legally entitled to? Is
well,
that happens?
the first thing is it is completely illegal, and I haven't come across personally, but I've seen some media reports and that there are things happening like that, but it is illegal, and I think the government is very strict
But
about it.
those individuals obviously then find it extremely difficult because they might not get the job or ideal job that they want. So they go forward or whatever job that they can find, and at the same time, they will take any challenges that they faced, whether it's physical, mental, psychological challenges, and they will try to earn some money so that they can survive.
Yeah, that's what is the scenario. They have to survive. So when the challenge is really high, they have to survive. They still have to survive. So they do those things. I know, I can understand. And obviously, if we can give them more options, then only these type of
And can they go anywhere for advice or help those students when
there
they
are
come to
some
this country?
sources. There are some sources like Citizen Advice Bureau. They also help people on that, on finding jobs, improving skills, and there are a few other government agencies they do as well. They provide support, and Job Center. They also provide support to those people. So for them, it is really important that they go to the right place and they don't get manipulated by by these employers who try to manipulate because they don't know uh, the way out of it. So again, for them, it is also important that they get skills to work in, work legally, and work in the sector they want to work in.
Okay, thank you very much, Shohag Bhai, for coming to the
Thank
show
you,
and
Oliver. Thank
sharing
you
your
for the
knowledge
opportunity.
with our viewers. I hope they will find this very helpful, especially people who wants to set up their own businesses. Thank you for watching the show and Welfare Clinic. Until next time, do take care.